because I know, nobody thinks freezing is sexy or exciting. Like I'm under no illusion that this is a topic that people are like, what? Really? This is what you spend your hours doing?
Welcome to the eighth episode of the 12 Days of Christmas Joy interview series. You are in the right place if you love food and need some inspiration and joy in your life. And today I am so excited to be joined by the lovely Kate Hall, author of The Full Freezer, Using Your Freezer as a Pause Button. And here is a copy of her lovely book. So, hello, Kate. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Becky. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Kate Hall is a TV food waste expert and author of the Amazon #1 bestseller, The Full Freezer Method. Kate helps busy households to reduce their food waste, save money, and cook more easily by using their home freezers more effectively. Unlike batch cooking, the full freezer method is completely flexible and allows families to easily enjoy a wide variety of meals. Kate has been featured by copious media outlets, including BBC Food, The Guardian, The Telegraph, has appeared on Lorraine, BBC Morning Live, ITV's Tonight, and Steph's Packed Lunch, to name but a few. And with over 100,000 followers from around the world, the Full Freezer is transforming attitudes towards food waste and empowering individuals to cut down on convenience food and embrace home cooking. So, Kate, so lovely to have you. Please, can you briefly explain to anybody who doesn't know about the Full Freezer method what it is?
Sure. So essentially, the full freezer method is obviously a book, but in itself a concept and a way of using our freezers to help us to save food as a starting point, to save money, but also to save time and to have more flexibility. So traditionally, when we think of our freezers, we think of shop bought frozen food and we think of batch cooking. And I was a batch cook for a very long time. I was really ill in my 20s, and my mum introduced me to batch cooking. So I get the love for batch cooking. However, not everybody loves it. And there are phases of our lives where it can be really difficult. And I was going through one of those phases after we had our second child. And I just had a light bulb moment and a moment of realization that if I could freeze a meal that I batch cooked, surely I could freeze the individual ingredients. I could just press pause on items of food that I knew were otherwise going to end up in the bin. And you can. So I did a lot of geeking out around reading up on how to freeze things in different ways, learning how to blanch vegetables properly, thinking about the actual process of, when you want to use it at the other end, how can we make it easy? Because people see what I do, and when they see the inside of my freezer, which is like a filing cabinet, basically, they assume that I'm a very organized person, and this is something that must be like unattainable for, people that aren't organized. I do it because I'm not. I do it because the idea of meal planning or prepping ahead, even just getting things out to defrost the night before is too much for my brain. And actually usually results in more waste because if I get something out the night before, by the time it comes to cook it, I don't want it anymore. I think there's a bit of a gremlin on my shoulder just messing with me. So the full freezer method is all about pressing pause on ingredients that are otherwise going to go to waste, saving the money, saving the time having to go back to the shops, having ingredients in. So we've got flexibility around what we cook and freezing them in a way that makes it easy to use them. So whether it's to be able to defrost them quickly, whether it's to be able to cook them from frozen. And the book takes you through, how to clear down your existing, what you've got in your freezer, because everybody's freezer is, we think it's a time machine. Like we think, oh, yeah, I'll get to that. And it just, food disappears forever. Um, and clear it down, get it defrosted really quickly and easily and safely, and then start to build up the stash of ingredients, and then how you can cook using those and how you can overcome some of the hurdles that people tend to get in the way of things like thinking your freezer isn't big enough when actually it's more about using the space that you've got effectively. So it's just all about being more effective with your freezer, really.
Yeah, so I think it's very seems very a very comprehensive guide. I mean, you do take people through all of the steps, don't you? That
Yeah, and it's written in a very conversational way, so it's intentionally rather than kind of because I know, nobody thinks freezing is sexy or exciting. Like I'm under no illusion that this is a topic that people are like, what? Really? This is what you spend your hours doing? But the book is intentionally written in a conversational way that's like a friend sharing tips and tricks with another friend. And you don't have to take everything, you don't have to follow all the steps. You take what's useful to you
yeah.
and apply what works for you in this phase of life as well. It might change as life changes.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you can take it and mold it to fit your lifestyle and what you need it to do for you. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's like the only things in the book that I really hope that people follow to some degree are the food safety bits of advice, because
Yes.
having not known those in the past when I was batch cooking, and then having done food safety training and understood just some of the basic stuff around food safety, it unlocks a lot of confidence and it can really help to reduce food waste,
Yes,
and just
because I think that's quite a thing, isn't it? Because if something, say, goes like I don't know, an apple goes past its sell-by date, it's knowing that it's okay to still eat that apple, whereas it's maybe not okay to eat a different sort of food. So it is about, I think that's quite important, isn't it? Because it gives you the, like you say, the confidence then to, because you have the knowledge and the understanding of why something is safe and why something isn't safe to eat.
That's it completely. And, I think it's something that's really important around this time of year because, when it comes to Christmas dinner, like that's one meal we really don't want to cause any food poisoning or any issues. So things like confidently knowing how to defrost your turkey, knowing how to deal with your leftovers, like having control over those things can just really help us to kind of keep a handle on the waste, keep a handle on the cost, but also enjoy kind of the festive season to, the best of our
Yeah,
abilities
yeah.
amongst all
So
of
one thing I want, there's lots of things I want to ask you, but the one thing I want to ask you is, so I have, sometimes I have this idea in my head that if I freeze something, it is going to deteriorate in sort of quality or taste or what are your comments on that?
If you leave it too long, then absolutely. That the longer something's in the freezer for, the more the quality is going to decrease. There's absolutely no denying that. And that's why I tend to emphasize that a lot of what the full freezer method about is saving the things that otherwise would have gone in the bin. Because better to have, that food at all than worry too much about the quality. Now when it comes to Christmas, obviously we want a really nice meal, but if we're only, because you can prep ahead and freeze pretty much everything for your Christmas dinner if you wanted to, which is what I have done already. My Christmas dinner is in the freezer, um, but because it's only, it'll be there by the time it gets to Christmas for me, it'll have been there about 2 months. I'd say a month, 6 weeks, you're not going to notice a difference in quality. And especially things like roast potatoes are actually really nice cooked from the freezer. What I hasten to add, because I know people get particularly protective over Christmas dinner, it's not a cooked Christmas dinner that's being reheated. It is a prepared Christmas dinner. So the roast potatoes have been parboiled, and instead of them going in the oven, they're cooled down and they're put in the freezer. And then they're cooked straight from frozen. And the
Right.
cooking from frozen is really key. I was misquoted in a newspaper previously, saying, oh, and she gets everything out of the freezer to defrost the night before. And it's like, no. No, don't defrost it. Like there might be things that need defrosting. Like you might have to defrost your turkey, or you might have to defrost stuffing or things like that. But most of the time, like all the vegetables cooked straight from frozen, nothing gets defrosted. Uh,
Amazing. So now I think people can, we're going to put a link under here, aren't we? So that people can get your top tips on how
yeah,
to best to prepare ahead for Christmas. Because I think actually having that all written down, like which bits to do what to.
that's it. And, I really encourage as well, if people have got, if you've got a bit of time, um, just give it a quick test run if you want to. Like freeze prep and freeze a carrot, a parsnip, probably not a Brussels sprout, but maybe a handful of Brussels. And like just literally just cook a handful
Yeah.
and see how you find it. Because actually, we can have preconceptions. And I think, a big issue is that when we think of frozen food, we are thinking of shop bought frozen food. And there is a huge difference between a shop bought roast potato, frozen roast potato, and a home prepared frozen roast potato. They're not the same thing. They're
Yeah.
just not.
Yeah.
Uh, so, if you're like, oh, this could make my life a lot easier, it means a lot less washing up on Christmas Day. It
Yeah.
makes it very convenient. And it also helps with waste because you have everything prepped. But if you've only got a small family, and especially if you live on your own, but you want a Christmas dinner, like having it prepped there and being able to just grab a handful of potatoes, handful of broccoli, whatever you fancy, and just cook what you want, maybe with intentional leftovers. It just frees up, that ability to not have
Yeah.
so much food that you're like, well, like I don't need a bag's worth of potatoes if it's just me and my partner or whatever. Like it
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
that flexibility. Um,
Absolutely. So
yeah.
yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it? So the key is understanding what to prepare and
Yeah.
how far to prepare it,
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's weighing up as well. People can download the guide, and the free guide that I've got is it's got potatoes, carrots, parsnips, sprouts, and there's a cooking guide inside it as well. I do have a second guide, which is a paid download, but all of the proceeds from that go to a charity called Free My Meal, who will be helping people over Christmas to
Amazing.
make sure those who are having a tricky time can enjoy a roast dinner, enjoy your Christmas dinner. And that contains more freezable recipes. It signposts out to freezable recipes and then has the food safety information and things in there. But you might look and you might go, oh, well, I don't see the point in freezing my pigs in blankets or my stuffing or whatever it might be. But for some people, it can be a really handy way to tackle how busy the fridge is. If you can get some of the stuff, if you've got rafts of cheese, like being able to have some of your veg in the freezer instead is just really handy. Like
Yeah.
it gives you that flexibility. So, some of it can be frozen, some of it can be fresh. Again, I just share the information and just want people to do with it as it works for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. So I'm really interested to know. So how did you think, oh, I'm going to write a book about this? How did you get that thought?
I was very lucky, to be fair. I felt like there was a book in it probably from around 2021, but I had I've got no connections in publishing, and really had no clue of how I would ever do it. And sat on that idea for a long time. And then because I create a lot of content for Instagram, which has really helped to sort of develop the concept and reach more people, I got a message one day from who is now my literary agent saying, have you thought about writing a book? So, well, I thought about it. I don't know how I'd do it. And she helped me with the proposal. And she pitched it out to publishers for me. And then Ebury, part of Penguin Random House, picked it up. And they were amazing, guiding me through the process and helping to really pull it all together was just absolutely mind blowing. I still can't quite sort of I can't quite believe it's a physical thing. It's whenever I get a message from someone and they say like, "I've just read your book," and it's like,
Yeah. Uh,
that's just absolutely mind blowing. It's wonderful, absolutely
yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, fabulous. So now I have to ask you this because I love Christmas and food, and I'm wondering what your favorite Christmas recipe is.
Oh, so we have a tradition in our house, which actually, I'll be honest, I have not prepared yet, but I will do. It's the icing on the cake for Christmas for us, which is Delia Smith's parsnip roulade. And
Oh,
it's my mum made it one Christmas because my cousin is vegetarian, and it was like, well, we could do a nut roast, but she discovered this parsnip roulade recipe, and it's like stuffing pureed parsnips and then a cheese sort of sponge, but it's not really a sponge. It's so light, and
oh,
honestly, like Christmas dinner is not Christmas dinner without a slice of parsnip salad. And the beauty, like for me, the beauty is if it is just the four of us, or if we, even if we go to my parents and it's six of us, we can cut it up into slices and freeze the slices, and then it could be February and you're still getting to, just a
yeah.
little slice of parsnip roulade with it. Like it's
No.
an amazing recipe, but it's a lot of faff. Like
Yeah, yeah,
there's lots of, chopping and mixing and
yeah,
it's more than I could usually face for a family meal or for a normal roast dinner. But for Christmas, it's
yeah.
so it's
It's right.
amazing.
Oh, fabulous. Well, it's been really exciting to talk to you. Now, I'm wondering if you've got anything else in the pipeline.
Well, I may have a little something. So you said about the book. So I obviously did pulled together the full freezer method, and that was published earlier this year. But actually, quite recently, I have also published a children's book.
Oh,
Uh,
wow, amazing.
so the Magic Pause button is all about a little girl who basically wants to do more for the planet. She is worried about climate change, and she just wants to take things a little bit more than recycling and walking and eating more veg and things. And she learns from her auntie that she can press pause on her foods. So instead of things going to waste, and food waste is a massive environmental issue, we waste globally a third of all food that's produced. And if food waste was an actual country in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, it would be the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases after China and the USA. So it is like it's one of those issues that awareness is growing, um, but it's still very socially acceptable to just throw things away, and
Yeah,
everybody has, the veg that they've not quite got to quick enough and all of that. And the magic pause button is just about sort of taking really, I mean, my illustrator, I just love to bits, Alexia Pinchbeck, like the colors and the brightness of all the illustrations. It's obviously food waste is a serious topic and a difficult thing to tackle with kids, and climate change is something that you don't want to get too bogged down in the negativity with kids.
yeah,
um so the objective with the magic pause button is to give them a very light, happy, cheery book that gives them control. And it actually has a section in it for us grown-ups as well. So it's as much about giving the parents control, which is 30 foods that your grown-up probably didn't know they could freeze. So things like ginger, popcorn, sweet potato, celery, nuts, all of these different foods that we wouldn't usually think to put in the freezer. And I hope with this book, it just opens up some possibilities that make it really quick and really easy for people to have those wins to start saving food and saving money. And we've actually now got my son and daughter act as fridge monitors in our house. So writing the book has actually helped. They've obviously been aware of what I've been doing for years. And part of the writing of the book, I actually did it with my daughter. So we wrote the story during lockdown, and then I only pulled it together with Alexia this year. But they knew what I did, and they know you can freeze things, but they've never really been proactively part of it. Whereas now, having sat and read the story at bedtime, they sort of say, well, mummy, what have we got in the fridge that might be going off? Have we got anything to save? And so they're actually looking now more proactively. Oh, this has got a date on it. It's, used by date, not a best before, mummy. We need to freeze it. And you know, I do this for a living, and every so often things still slip through the net because we're busy and the days just disappear. So it's nice with something like the story to be able to bring kids into it and give them a sense of control as well, and give them a sense of responsibility.
Yeah, and maybe a bit of a say in what they eat as well, make them feeling involved in the process so that, yeah.
Absolutely. And it starts to tap into them thinking about, oh, well, mummy, you've got that in the freezer, and can we make a smoothie? So if we've frozen a load of strawberries and bananas, they'll ask if they can make a smoothie for pudding. And to me, that ticks so many boxes because it's like, oh, I don't have to buy more puddings. It's a healthy pudding. I don't mind them having it, and it gets them cooking. And it's like, well, okay, that doesn't, sometimes it's going to be a shop bought thing and it's just like, oh, I've not got the energy to be getting the blender out right now. But sometimes actually, yeah, come on then, kids, let's chuck some in the food processor, the blender, and whiz you something up. And that it is just having that control, and that sort of flexibility, and yeah, bringing it to younger people and getting to do library readings and in sort of involvement with the schools and everything, is lovely because I get a lot of adults that say when they read my book, they're like, well, how did I never know this? Like, why has nobody ever taught us that we can freeze pretty much everything? So my hope with the magic pause button is that it's like, well, okay, I can't change what kids are taught in schools, but I can sneak in there for a few seconds and get it into as many schools as possible, to just get kids thinking about it. Then, hopefully we'll have more grown-ups in 20, 30 years who just treat it as normal, who just see it.
Yeah, and understand the yeah, that when you're wasting food, you're not just, yeah, it's all of the production process, all of the water, all of the energy that's gone into growing it. It's because I can sometimes think, oh, I'll put it in the compost and then it goes to, but
But yeah, that's it. Every time we waste food, we are wasting all the resources that went into growing it. And when you think of, everybody has had a bunch of bananas sitting on the side, getting squishy. And, some people will religiously go, right, banana bread time. But most people are too busy. And, the
yeah,
thought of having to make something to avoid it going in the bin is just too much. Whereas if they're aware that, like in the magic pause button, the story, the auntie freezes some bananas that are very ripe, and then at the end they make ice cream with them. And just connecting those dots that it's like, okay, well, freezing the bananas is not going to take very long. That is something I can do really quickly.
yeah,
Um, and that's going to save the bananas which have come from miles and miles and miles away, and the back-breaking work that somebody's gone to pick those bananas and for them to be shipped and to sit in our shops. And it's like, oh, if we can just
yeah,
shift our habits, and it doesn't have to be everything at once. Like, I'm not expecting people to be all of a sudden zero waste,
yeah.
but just finding those things that we regularly waste and looking whether we can just press pause on them and use them
Brilliant.
later is just, it's a win all round if you can,
Yeah.
habits.
Fabulous. Oh, Kate, that's amazing. Yes. So this is Kate's book. It's available on Amazon. So we'll put all of those links to where to buy the book and for your Christmas download and the one that for the charity as well, because that's amazing. So thank you so much for being here today. And have a lovely Christmas.
You too. Thank you so much for having me, Becky. It's been lovely.
Thank you.